All right, welcome to this week's episode of the JJ Redick Podcast with Tommy Alter. I'm joined by a fellow podcaster, it turns out, Duncan Robinson from the Miami Heat. Duncan, I understand that you had a podcast while you were at Michigan.
I did, yeah. First off, appreciate you having me on. Was not to the level of this production. I'm quite impressed by what you guys got going on here, but yeah, just a teammate of mine. We just kind of documented our run in the tournament, so it was cool.
How many episodes did you do?
I think we did about 5. I think the challenge was like developing a consistent schedule. We were just kind of all over the place because, you know, college, you have like class, practice, all sorts of stuff.
Who recorded it?
We had, I think we actually tweeted out somebody if they could like edit it and everything. And then some guy came through and he actually did a really good job. Like the production was pretty solid.
Wait, so you did it during the tournament?
Yeah. So that was like part of what kind of why I got some notoriety.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah. Cause we would like play a game and then the next day we just like record and we'd like kind of give some insight on the game. And,
where can I find these?
They're on like the Apple Podcast.
What's the name of the podcast?
It's oh dear, here we go. It's called the Doc and Dunk
I'm just
Show.
trying to plug your podcast.
No, I mean
man.
it's dead at this point. I mean it's we haven't recorded one in about 2 years.
People will find it.
Would you do it again? I mean, listen, if he falls off, you know, we're in the market for.
No, I mean he's got a good thing going. But now maybe we'll see. I'm trying to focus in on basketball at least at this stage of my career. So we'll see.
Do you want to get to some other stuff before we start asking Duncan questions? I feel like this is going to be more of our intro that we normally do.
Well, let's do some food stuff.
Okay, let's do it. What do you got?
Well, we were talking when we were coming in about some of the stuff that you do on the road because you've been in the league now for 2 years and you're in this place where, you know, you have a lot of free time, you got some money, you're in all these different cities, you're we have a segment on the show called Bored on the Road where we just talk about like what you do when you're literally bored on the road. What's your process like when you land in a random city?
Yeah, great question. I've gotten big into like food, restaurants and stuff. Honestly, like I'll just like pull up an app. Yelp is kind of my go-to. Actually, listening to this podcast, you showed me about infatuation. I didn't know about that prior to this, so I appreciate that.
Don't go in the comments like him.
Yeah, I'm not at that level yet.
I feel like infatuation gets a lot of plug on this podcast. So let's. Eater's also good. Eater's another one.
He's a Yelp hater. Yelp is an incredible resource.
So I've heard some polarizing opinions on Yelp. That there's like not as much legitimacy as like actual food critics because anybody can just like write a Yelp review, but it's proven to be pretty solid for me. I also go off for recommendations. I'll ask somebody if they like know the city well. So, and then I usually I'll just like if I know somebody in the city, I'll meet up with them and we'll just grab a meal.
Do you have a minimum star threshold for Yelp? Is it 4.2, 4.0?
I try to get 4.5. Most times you can find a 4.5 within walking distance. I like to walk because you get a better feel for the city too, versus like getting an Uber or taxi.
What's been like the diamond in the rough find?
I went to this. This is kind of cheating because it was with Kelly, who's from Toronto, or has spent a lot of time in Toronto. But I went to this like omakase place in Toronto. That was like a block or two from the Shangri-La Hotel. That was unbelievable. I wasn't necessarily expecting having like great sushi in Toronto, but if anybody could find it, it'd be Kelly.
We did a power ranking earlier today about top 5 meals under $10. So like all over the country. So basically like I had a sandwich today, a turkey and the wolf, which we reference number 9 on this show today.
It's the 6th straight podcast that we've talked about.
but it doesn't count because it was $11. So we need some spots, and they don't have to be spots for the last 2 years. It could be spots for your whole life that wherever you've had, we're like, okay, it's a taco. It's a
no. I was actually gonna say I got a great one for you. The taco stand in Wynwood in Miami.
Oh, incredible!
You've had it?
Incredible.
So everybody loves Koyo Taco. That's like the one everyone wants to go to.
No, taco stand's better.
But taco stand is, I think, better. That's kind of like my spot. I live like right by there too, so it's easy to get to.
Do you live in Wynwood?
Midtown, so Midtown, nearby.
Right?
Yeah.
What's your Miami? What are your main takeaways of the city, basketball aside?
It was a lot, honestly, when I first got there. I'm from New Hampshire, grew up in New Hampshire, went to school in the Midwest. So like Miami just felt like a whole different world, quite honestly. So it's been a little bit of an adjustment, but now that I've like kind of gotten used to it, I mean, the weather obviously first and foremost is like unbelievable. But like the restaurant scene has been huge too. I think like, I don't really go out like that. In terms of like clubs or whatever. So I try to just like stay away from the Miami Beach in general, but I'm a big fan.
I just want to point out that I'm not drinking on back-to-back episodes. We were recording this right after, for the YouTube viewers, we're recording this right after we did Jimmy, and I'm working on the same glass of wine. So I don't want our YouTube viewers to think that this is what we do now on the podcast.
Of course not.
No,
definitely not. It's definitely not what we do.
Definitely not. I remember when I got drafted, I was like, I'm going to Orlando. Like, this is crazy. Such a big city. I can't imagine what it was like. Preconceived notion of Miami versus reality of Miami. Any stark differences?
I mean, yeah, you think of Miami and you just think of like, obviously the tropical, but also just, at least for me, like everyone goes there spring break or whatever, like that whole club scene. But there are like more low key parts of Miami, which I've like kind of grown to appreciate. Last year was tough because I was like back and forth in the G League. So when I was in Miami, I was just in a hotel. But this year I've actually been able to kind of like get out and experience the city a little bit more.
You've had an incredible story. So we should touch on this a little bit. But just, it's incredible to me. I was on your Wikipedia page today. You were a senior in high school in like 2011, 2012, right? That season?
2012, yeah.
Yeah, they're your first year before you did a post-grad year. And you've played like, this is now 8 years later, and you've played like, what, 68 games or 70 games, counting last year?
Yeah.
So it's been an incredible journey to get to this point. It really is. So just take us through from like graduating high school, doing the post-grad year at Exeter, and then kind of once you get to Williams and how you decided to go to Williams.
Yeah, sure. I'll start off with saying I just wasn't very good in high school. I was like a late bloomer or whatever. So I was like 5'6" as a freshman. I hardly played my whole junior year. Started to play a little bit more as a senior. And then it's pretty common in New England, not really common elsewhere, but I took a 5th year postgraduate. So I went to Phillips Exeter for a year, which is like, it's basically like a small college. I mean, it's unbelievable campus. Academics are tough. And I didn't have any offers. So at that point, I felt like I had like not really had a high school basketball experience. So I wanted to go somewhere where I knew I was going to play. I had a great relationship with the coach at Williams at the time, Mike Maker. So I committed to him before I even played a game at Exeter. And, you know, after I started playing, some Division I schools kind of started to reach out. But at that point, I wanted to go somewhere where I knew I was going to be valued and at least be on the court. And then I, you know, played a year at Williams, loved it there. You know, tiny school in the middle of nowhere. Great school though, great experience. And then he actually left. He took a Division I job. And I was going to stay there all 4 years with him for sure, like no doubt. But when he left, it kind of opened up some doors. And he was actually an assistant for John Beeline at West Virginia. So he kind of bridged the gap between myself and Coach Beeline. And, you know, at first, Coach Beeline just reached out. He was like, you know, if you want to maybe come as a walk-on, we might have a spot for you. And he looked at some of my film and all of a sudden, like a week later, I was on campus, official visit, committed on my visit, and you know, did 4 years in Michigan, sat 1 and played 3.
I find it really interesting that you were. It was part of the deal that you wanted to go somewhere to hoop D1, but it had to be a great academic school. Was that because the NBA was obviously just not on the radar at this time? Obviously.
Yeah, I mean the NBA it's every kid's dream, obviously, but to say it was like something I was planning on would be just a flat out lie. You know, Williams is a great school, and my mom was like really excited that I was going there, and she didn't want me to leave. So if I was going to leave, it was going to have to be one where the basketball fit made sense, and two that it was a really good school. So I kind of put together a list of like schools that would be worth leaving in my eyes. Never in a million years would I thought that any of them would reciprocate, you know, wanting me there. And it was like, there was like 5 of them. Michigan was on there. And, you know, like I said, all of a sudden I'm on campus and I'm committing on my visit.
At what point, I'm guessing this is when you were at Michigan, but at what point were you mentally, did it like flip and you were just like, okay, all these guys are whatever, McDonald's All-Americans, all these things, and like, I can play with them?
Yeah, I mean, it was a constant battle. My career at Michigan wasn't exactly smooth sailing either. I started a lot my sophomore year, got benched my junior year, started the beginning of my senior year, and got benched halfway through my senior year. So there's always been that constant kind of, not necessarily questioning, but doubt has a way of kind of creeping in the back of the mind. So I always just try to fall back on what I've always done, and that's just kind of stay the course, stay with it, and put in the work, and things will usually take care of themselves.
I feel like as a shooter too, like we are constantly battling the mental side of it. I talk about this all the time, but there's a burden that comes with being a shooter, and labeled whatever. I mean, whether you want to be a shooter or not, but there's a burden that comes with that. The expectation of making shots, because you don't get the ball a lot.
Yeah.
So when you do, it's usually to shoot the ball, and so it's like that rhythm, and then you have those stretches like 3-week stretch, 2-week stretch, whatever, and that doubt starts creeping in, and it can fuck you up. Yeah.
I mean, for me, like, it can be crippling for sure. Yeah. I mean, so I played summer league. I went undrafted, played summer league with the Heat, and I had one of the stretches where I made shots, and that was obviously good. Sometimes you go through stretches where you do, sometimes you go through stretches where you don't. And I got to training camp, and I remember it was like 3 weeks straight. Like, I didn't make a shot. Like in workouts maybe, but like when we played live, whether we pick up, coaches in the gym or not, whatever, I couldn't make anything.
This is right when you got in.
Right when I got to, like, right before training camp. And I'm sure you maybe felt, well, actually probably you haven't, because well, I mean, maybe you have, but I don't know. But like people looking around like, oh, this guy was supposed to be able to shoot. You know what I mean? Like, and there's just kind of this like thing, and then you just start to like double down on yourself, and you're just kind of, the mental side of it. As I mentioned, it can just be, it's more than half the battle, at least in my opinion.
I don't think I've made a shot in training camp in like 5 years.
I'm not. Right, so maybe you can't relate.
No, it's the truth. I sit next to Kenrich Williams on the plane, and we had like this inter squad scrimmage, and he's like, after I made shots in that. I scored like 22 points, right, in like 2 quarters, and I made shots, and then he's like, hey man, like I didn't realize you could still shoot. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, we were all talking about you didn't make a shot in training camp.
That makes me feel better that you go through it too, man, because
I definitely go through it.
Well, so we were looking at the stats earlier today, and like one of the things which is so crazy about this, and I feel like it's starting to get a lot of attention in the NBA or nationally or whatever it is like it's not just that you've had this sort of miraculous story and you've made it here, but you're making it here and you're thriving on a really good team. And so now I was looking at this before, so you've made 225 3-pointers, most threes by any player in his first 2 seasons, most threes by an undrafted player a season ever. Like, you're obviously a super kind of grounded, humble dude in general, but like this, it's kind of like, what the fuck? Like, this is it's a very sort of Disney-esque story to come from being, it's one thing to go to Michigan and have a great sort of college career. It's another thing to come into the NBA and do this when you were, to your point, weren't even really playing that much as a senior in high school.
Yeah. It's, I'm in it, and it's hard to wrap my mind around at times. I just try to make the most of it. I mean, I certainly didn't expect any of this. I've kind of learned in my career to not expect things, because the moment you do and they don't turn out the way, it's just it just makes it more difficult. But I did think that I was capable. And we talk about the mental side of it. It's kind of this combination of like, I do have extreme confidence in myself. I know that I can really shoot. But there's still, you want to see that the ball go through at this level and prove that you can do it at this level, surrounded by guys that you grow up watching on TV. So it's been a process, and I think my confidence is still growing. It helps a ton, and I'm not just saying it because he's in the room, but like having a guy like Jimmy, and really my whole team. Like, Jimmy yells at me when I don't shoot, so like to have a guy like that, because I've heard stories where it's just not that way. So I feel fortunate for that.
I had forgotten Jimmy was in the room still. The Heat have this, we were talking with Jimmy last week on the pod and also 30 minutes ago. Like I did that. Nice. Just about the Heat culture or whatever. But one of the things that's really unique about the Heat culture, and I think I would probably put the Raptors in this too, is their development program. How important do you think for your career was just being in the right situation?
Oh, it was huge. I'm a firm believer in, for me at least, like situation was going to be everything. Yeah. I felt that way when I was transferring. I felt that way, obviously, when I was fortunate enough to be able to choose because I was undrafted. I guess getting undrafted makes me fortunate. I don't know, however you want to look at that. But yeah, I mean, the development program there has been incredible. Last year was huge for me, gaining experience, being up, with the Heat, but then also learning and growing through mistakes and being able to showcase my abilities with the G League. And then, I obviously wasn't in the rotation much last year, but every single day it was, I was being invested in, from the coaching staff to the training staff, in the weight room and all that. So, I love everything they stand for, and it's a huge reason as to why I've been able to get to where I am in my career.
Is it true that Spo yells at you if you dribble the ball inside the 3-point line?
That has happened occasionally. I mean, he's not
occasionally, so on more than one occasion.
Yeah, I mean, it's not exactly what it sounds like, but it's more so that I pass up shooting beyond the 3-point line. Yeah. He loves to point out every time that I don't shoot and it leads to a turnover,
right?
Or maybe
like a shot clock violation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, he loves pointing that one out, but he's also like always in my ear about just being more and
There's
more aggressive.
There's a great article about you in the Wall Street Journal that Ben Cohen wrote back in December. You talk about how one of your coaches said that you passing up shots is selfish, and that when you got to the NBA and Spo would get on you about not shooting, you had to like change your mentality. And I think for the average fan, they don't understand. For a guy like me and you, like what would normally be a bad shot for some people, like we have to take those shots. It's very unique. I actually went through it a little bit early in the season because coming to a new situation and your coaches are not used to you taking certain shots. And I just be like, look, these are the shots I take. These are the shots. This is how I made my career. They're not good shots for everybody, but they're good shots for me.
Yeah, I mean, there's a learning curve with that, like anything, and I certainly went through it. It's kind of like a foreign concept, or at least it was at the time. Like, how is me taking what seems like a bad shot, or not taking the shot, selfish? You know what I mean? It's like almost backwards. But like anything, I just tried to apply it, grow through it. You make some mistakes with it, but now it's kind of like once it gets to the point where it just kind of becomes second nature. I'm not saying it's there, but it's like trending towards getting there. And a huge part of it is just being comfortable. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's one thing that I feel really fortunate about with our team is that I just feel really comfortable out there.
What's your career high so far for 3-point attempts in a game? Do you know, off the top of your head?
I think it's like 15 maybe.
Okay.
15, I want to say.
That's good.
What's yours?
15.
Yeah. 15.
And what's your career high for makes?
10.
10,
yeah.
And you hit 9 last night.
I did not, yeah.
That's amazing.
But I mean, they were showing me stuff of Wayne Ellington when he was in Miami. Yeah. Like he had a couple games where he took 20 or 21, I think.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
I had to guard him for a playoff series. If he's in the game, they're running to play for him.
100%.
It was crazy.
I've watched a ton of stuff on obviously you, but him just because it's a lot of the same actions. Yeah. He's just running around. It's crazy. But yeah.
Who were this is actually who were the guys when you were growing up that you were look up to or try to emulate? Like who were the guys?
I mean, this is gonna feel like pandering, but I mean, 100%.
He needs this now.
Tell me more.
He needs this now after the last hour and a half.
I mean,
your ass.
Just like a lot of the ways that you get your shots and how you are creative with how you get your shots. And also one of the things that I've tried to adapt, obviously you're from everything I've heard, this is the first time we've really met, but you're a great dude off the court, but as soon as you step between the lines, it's like a different persona mentality. Yeah. And that's something that I feel like you kind of need to survive, honestly, at this level, or at least I'm learning that you do. So like that. And then also, Kyle Korver, Klay Thompson. I grew up a Celtics fan, so Ray Allen as well. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there's Steph, obviously, changed the game in a lot of ways. Yeah. But, something about the way particularly you and Kyle Korver and Klay get their shots definitely resonated with me.
Do you feel like, and I'm glad Jimmy's in the room to hear this question, but do you feel like it's like every night, because you're a white shooter, do you feel like you get challenged every night in a way? And so that persona, like it's part of your survival mechanism?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, first and foremost, defensively.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
People's eyes just light up. Yeah. And that's something I've been dealing with my whole life. I don't know if you can relate. You're probably at the point.
So Jimmy was in Minnesota, and I guarded him on the block, and he later told me that he was mad because the Sixers had put a white guy on him.
That sounds like something Jimmy would say, with all due respect. Yeah. I tell you that all the time. Yeah. No, he lets me know regularly in practice if we're ever matched up that I can't guard him. But we make each other better, or at least he makes me better. I don't know how much better I make him, but
are you getting heckled on the road?
A little bit. I'm still pretty unknown, man. Like what happened, like in Utah, I hit a couple in the first half, and then people maybe started to say something, but like I still feel like some people are like, who is it? Like, who is this guy? What's his deal? Like, why is he even out here? Because I'm pretty unassuming. At least I think I'm tall, but other than that, that's about where it stops.
What was like the 3-point contest for you this year? Being able to participate in that.
It was a great experience. I'm super happy to do it. The weekend was a whirlwind. I mean, it's crazy. Just how much. I mean, you shot for a minute and 10 seconds with the new rules, but like all the stuff that goes into that, it's crazy. So you just never quite feel like you really have a break. I don't particularly love the format of it. I feel like
shooting off a rack.
Like that's just like
format.
The new format was. I just meant more so like everybody just kind of goes onto the court. You get 2 minutes to warm up. Yeah. Then you're like pulling off the rack. Feels a little unnatural. I practiced for it. And still, pretty much laid an egg. But it's. I hope to do it again. I want to just have the competitive side of me wants to go back and try to win it, but we'll see.
When you got in Chicago, there's not an extra gym in that stadium, right?
So
they set something up.
They have the center, the Avocare Center, which is like they're practically right across the street. So we had the option to like walk to the other. It was like 2 degrees out.
Right.
Walk to the other gym. So like I went over there. Most guys did. I went over there before and shot for a little bit. But we still like 45 minutes leading up to it. We just had like the 2 minutes.
Because Barclays had like a half court that we could shoot on, and then Toronto obviously has like that weird practice facility, the old practice facility upstairs on like the 3rd level. So we was able to like practice a little bit.
Was that back-to-back years that you did it?
Yeah. I did not do well in either.
What was your experience with it? I'm curious.
It's the same thing. I mean, it's like you'd spend the whole weekend there. You've got media, you've got community stuff. You're trying to take care of your people, and then you shoot for like my time was a minute.
Right.
And I didn't do well. And then you walk off and you're like, oh, that was it. You know? So I did set the record for most long twos in a 3-point contest.
You had your foot on the line?
At 4.
Well, you jump forward too. I've noticed how did you do that? Did you shoot those same shots?
I shot the same way.
Okay.
So I jumped forward. So then it's like I had to retreat to go get the ball.
See, that's tough.
Yeah.
Did you have any issues with like the timing?
No, I didn't. Okay. I got them all up, but that's a big problem. The good thing in real games, I get 4-point plays because I jump forward. It's
very true. You and Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder gets more 4-point plays than anybody I've ever seen. He's had like 4 since he's been with us.
B.I. Brandon Ingram, he's starting to master it a little bit too. He's getting that little it's probably like 6 to 12 inches tilt like towards the rim.
Yeah, see, we got to talk about that.
And you get clipped.
I don't get any. I've gotten 1 all year.
It's how I shoot. I can't shoot another way. I've tried.
Are you getting fouled and not getting the calls, or you're just not getting it?
I mean, I get hit on my wrist all the time, and then like with the new rule, it's like hand-to-hand follow through. It's like it's on a foul. The thing that frustrates me the most right now is like the grabbing. I'll try to leave early on a pin down or whatever, and I just get grabbed. But I also don't get the respect to complain, to these officials, at least at this point in my career. So just kind of got to deal with it.
When in your career did you start getting those calls?
My free throw rate's always been pretty good. No, it's always been like, I remember though, my first or second year, I think it might have been Bennett Salvatore. He was one of the old referees. I tried to do like the cut through the lane and, rip underneath the guy's arm. And I would get that at Duke. And he's like, stop doing that, JJ. I watched all your games at Duke. You're not getting that call in the NBA. And I was like, all right, I'm never doing that one again. Yeah. But guys inevitably grab us. Like it's just a thing. I feel like the like subtle jersey tug is my pet peeve. Like when I'm coming off and like a guy Kyle Lowry does this all the time. Like he'll just grab it real quick.
Yep.
To like almost catch up to you, and he uses the momentum.
And the ref can't quite catch it because he can't really tell. Yeah,
drives me crazy.
You're creative with how you get to the line. Like I'm still at the point where I won't do like the shot fake get into somebody, because what happens when they don't call it and I just like throw, I don't have like the moxie or whatever, like the confidence to just like do that yet.
You have to be willing to fall on some grenades.
Yeah, that's what I've learned.
You have to be.
But, maybe I'll get there at some point. We'll see.
No, but I feel like the shots you take in a game, because like last night you took 12 threes, right?
Yeah.
For the listener, it is so hard to take 12 shots in an NBA game when you're shooting the percentage that Duncan is shooting. It's incredibly hard. He's not getting swing spot shots. It's on the move, over people. So you're already like, to me, if you're like trying to get to the line, like you just got to swallow a couple.
Yeah.
You'll get them in the air.
Yeah.
And also too, it's like, it's the end of the shot clock, one dribble, everybody jumps because it's the end of the shot clock.
Yeah.
That's the best time to do it.
See, that's
shot fake and you jump into it. Well, not jump into them. A lot of times they don't call the jump into, but you get them up in the air going towards you, they have to give you that call.
Yeah, I always have, like when I watch a film after the game, I always have regret over like one or two times every game that I like, I could have done it there. I could have done it there. And the staff is like, they're like, we're okay if you like you said, land on a couple grenades. Like if it happens, you don't get it, like we're okay with it. Like we need you to like learn how to do this. Because I shoot 90 from the line, but I don't get to the line unless it's like I get grabbed on like a cut or something like that. I found that with the shot, like on a closeout, and I get a shot fake opportunity, like 3 or 4 years ago, and prior to that, my whole career, my mindset was always to take that dribble in and shoot like a 17-footer. And I thought it was a pretty high percentage shot for me. And like last year in Philly, at the beginning of the year, their analytics guy was like, here's what you shoot it well, but here's what that shot's worth. Right.
If you sidestep, here's what it's worth. And when I saw that, I was like, it actually messed me up at the beginning of the season because I was thinking about it too much. But now it's like programmed into all of us to just sidestep.
Yeah. So I took that same shot in Michigan.
Yeah.
And that was
the step into.
The step into. Yeah. And that was one of the first things when I got to Miami that they said, like, yeah, you're not shooting that anymore. It's either a sidestep or you're hitting a big and chasing it. Like that's you're not going to.
Are you allowed to shoot layups?
I mean, yeah, I'm allowed to shoot layups, but like, I mean, my layups are like pretty much uncontested. You know what I mean?
You do have some of my favorite box scores ever.
Yeah, I mean, I
meaning
go
like you're like
I don't
6 for 13 from the field, 6 for 13.
yeah, exactly. It's pretty regular that I just don't take it to.
It's great.
Do you have any repetitions or superstitions that you do before the games?
I mean, I have my shooting routine. That I kind of play with a little bit here and there. And right now I'm like pretty consistently doing the same thing. I do like some breathing stuff, some stretching stuff. And then I just have like when I eat my pregame meal. But other than that, I don't have anything like put on this sock first or nothing like that. I know some shooters who do. I don't know if you have anything like that. Mostly just my routine.
It's a routine. It's not a superstition. No, I really want, I said this the other day, but I really want a camera to follow me from the time I get up on a game day to when the game ends and I'm in the cold tub. Not for anyone else to see, but just for me, so that I can look back in 20 years and be like, what a fucking weirdo. What a weirdo.
This is what we said is like, we could just do this.
We could arrange.
I'm looking around. We have 3 cameras here right now.
3 cameras here. We have a guy with his own YouTube empire.
We got a guy in the room who's been nominated for some YouTube awards.
That's
right. Starting a production company. I'm going to talk to him.
He's sitting back there.
I'm going to talk to him about this camera work. All right, for this week's Power Rankings, Duncan's going to take control here. He's going to do his 5 holy shit, I can't believe I'm playing against this guy Power Rankings.
So are you guys just not in this at all?
Well,
we're commenting.
Take your time.
Does it have to be in a specific order?
No.
I can just kind of go. I mean, first and foremost, LeBron.
Yeah.
I remember watching him last year. I sat on the bench the whole game, but he had, I think, 50, in Miami, or at least 40. And then this year when we played against him both times, it's just, you see it on TV, but like to see it.
Did he acknowledge you?
No.
He didn't?
No. I think he was guarding me. We played them early in the season. At this point, I hadn't really like done much. So he was guarding me and he was just like sitting in the paint. And I made a shot. And he kind of like scoffed at me like
like who is this?
Yeah, exactly. And I actually didn't shoot well that game. That was like when I was still trying to figure it all out. That one for sure. Last year in the few games I did play, I actually had to guard Victor Oladipo.
Okay.
And that was like my one from last year. Like if you had asked me that question this past summer, it would have been Victor Oladipo. Yeah. He's just like always in go mode. I didn't really stand much of a chance. Yeah. Sheesh, who else? I mean, it would be like Steph and Clay, but they've both been out this year.
Yeah. And you're not going to get to play against me.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you're out tomorrow, which is tough.
It's KD too. Yeah. It's going to be like that with KD.
Yeah, KD. Man, I don't really have. Actually, I'm actually a big. When I was coming out like pre-draft, I'm a big Joe Ingles fan. Because when my pre-draft was right when he had just had that series with the Thunder, and he was like talking shit to Paul George. He was like, kind of like, I don't want to say come onto the scene because everyone knew at that point he was still really good, but like he was kind of making his claim of like this 2-way player. And I would like kind of compare myself to him, because you always get that question in pre-draft stuff, like who do you remind yourself of or whatever. So
you would say Joe Ingles.
I like it because I would. I mean, Joe.
It's a really good comp
because I know Joe,
he's a super useful player.
Yeah, and I know Joe Ingles, like at least from what I've heard, talks a ton of shit. Yeah. I don't know if I can curse in this podcast.
I've said,
you're good. And like when we were playing against each other this year, I didn't know if he was gonna like converse with me or actually like kind of go at me.
Yeah.
So just kind of feeling it out, and then we ended up just kind of having like a little bit of a conversation, which is kind of cool.
Do you talk? Is that why you compared yourself to Joe?
I don't necessarily like talk shit to like two people, but like I'll say stuff if I like kind of get going or like make a shot. More sort of like the general public. About it,
you turned around to our bench this year when we played you in Miami, which I also didn't play in that game.
Yeah, you didn't play in that game either.
And so I'm sitting there and I'm rolling on the foam roller, and somebody said you hit a ridiculous 3, like no wasted motion, caught it and went up right in front of our bench in the corner. Yeah. And somebody on the bench was like, hell no, or something like that.
I said, and then I said, that's catch high, keep high. That's what I said.
I'm sorry, what?
I was like, that's catch high, keep high. Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't dip, don't dip it. I remember that one. Yeah. So like it's funny, like when you talk about it in this setting, I kind of feel like a dick when I say that type of stuff. But it's also like
adrenaline.
Yeah. Like you're in it and it's just kind of like, I mean, I watched you against us last year, not necessarily like talk shit, but like, compete with like a certain level of like fire.
Yeah. Wait, were you on the team when we played you guys in Miami?
Yes.
Last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, I talked a lot of shit that game.
You did.
Yeah. But I was talking shit to our bench. Not like in a negative way. I was talking like our trainer and I.
Yeah.
We were just like going.
And I'll do that too. Like I have like
you have your inside jokes with
like with an assistant coach who's like, whatever, like thinks you're like not there that night or whatever, and like you just kind of hit a shot and say something. Yeah, exactly. So it's less like to a specific.
Has anyone talked shit to you?
Nothing like jumps out at me, but yeah, I mean, there's been some back and forth. Actually, it's a funny story. I actually feel bad about this. We played Toronto in Miami, and they put Fred VanVleet on me in the first play. I came off and hit a shot, and it was just kind of like whatever. I was like in the moment. Yeah. And I said it to myself, but he heard me. I was like, I think I said something like, he's way too short to guard me. And like, I have a ton of respect for Fred VanVleet.
One of my favorite players in the NBA. I told
mine
him
too. Yeah.
He's really one of my favorite players.
He heard me, and he fired something back. And then like, we kind of started going at it, and then it was like going in this place where I didn't really want it to go. And then like I almost like halfway through the game, I like said to him like, just want to let you know, man, like I have like a ton of respect for you, like undrafted guy, I'm undrafted. Like you kind of like laid the blueprint. So that was like kind of a funny moment. I don't even know where we are on my list. Maybe 3.
You've done 3. We've got LeBron, we've got Victor Oladipo, and somehow we have Joe Ingles. Yeah,
Joe Ingles is on there. I'd probably say Kawhi. Kawhi, like, I didn't understand how physically like imposing he is. I mean, he's so strong. And he guarded me for stretches in both the games that we played. And he's just so long and strong. And offensively, he's just knows how to get to his spots.
What about Giannis?
Yeah, Giannis is another great one. He'd probably be 5 for me.
Probably.
Yeah, no, he would be.
Does he guard you?
No. He I think he guarded Bam or Derek or some combination. We just played them. But his length, and I just have so much respect for how hard he plays every single night too. It's pretty impressive.
It's unbelievable.
But yeah, that's all I got. That was kind of
okay.
I was kind of all over the place, but
no, that's good.
You put me on the spot, so
that's
I
good.
did.
We put you on the spot. Those are good.
I did what I could.
It's good, and it's also when we do this next season, it's going to be a different list.
That's right.
There's going to be guys who you have played against, who you've not played against tonight.
Yeah, hopefully at that point I can throw JJ on the list.
I hope.
I'd probably say Zion. I haven't played against Zion yet either, but he's
forceful.
I keep seeing it on TV, and I'm like, forceful. I don't know how he keeps moving these guys, but he does.
I watch you guys play a lot because I love Jimmy, and so I watch you guys. But like to watch it firsthand is actually an incredible thing, game to game. Like, and Coach K, he used to always talk about like reference points, and you are like building your reference points right now. And so for me, as I got older in my career, I could go back to those reference points when I had the slumps. The slumps are inevitable.
Yeah.
They are.
100%.
So I could go back to those and be like, oh, you know what? Like I'm a good shooter. I'm actually pretty good.
Right. And it's, for you, obviously, you have all the years under your belt, so it's so much easier to like tap into those reference points. For me, it's
just use last night as a reference.
Yeah, that's probably a good place to start. But it's funny too. Like sometimes I'll like watch film of a game and I'll be like, let alone making, but like I wasn't even taking that shot 2 or 3 months ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and like that is once I get to the point where like I'm not thinking about like, oh, is this a good shot, bad shot? Should I take this? Then you can kind of move into just being free out there, which is when I tend to play my best.
Do you ever worry about like, or maybe not worry, but does it bother you to be labeled as a shooter?
Does it not necessarily bother me? I think that I have other things that I bring to the game. Shooters like sometimes can be like such an absolute like just like label. I take pride in the fact that I can shoot, but I don't necessarily want to just be that. I guess I don't know how you feel about that, but
it's like it's a tricky thing, right?
Yeah,
because your value, you as a commodity, an asset, is because of your shooting. But there's there is a negative connotation when someone says shooter. Like, did you notice when we had Joe Ingles on the podcast and we talked about how he potentially could be one of the 30 or 40 best shooters in the Western Conference? And he's like, he pushed back. He's like, I'm not a shooter.
Yeah, yes, 100%.
Yeah.
When it seems like there's the label, even though it's not a negative label at all,
but it's somewhat offensive.
Yeah, you don't want to be. No, but nobody wants to be categorized as one particular thing, even if that is, of course, the only thing that you do.
I think Joe Ingles has more of a claim to not being just a shooter than myself. I mean, when we were talking about earlier, but like I have box scores where I literally don't take another shot. Yeah. So I have a little bit less ground to stand on if I'm going to fight back on that, but Still, I mean, I'll, at this point in my career, man, as long as I'm in an NBA uniform, I'll take it. You know, if you want to call me a shooter, I'll take it. That's fine.
That's great. But it's like not only are you in a NBA uniform, but you're actually. I mean, I went to the game you guys played. It was in December. It was on Christmas, and you played Indy. It was a really good game. You played Indy and Philly back to back. I didn't go to the Philly game, but you played Indy, and I think you won at the last second or something like that. I think you probably had 5 or 6 threes during the game, but you could tell, obviously it's the home crowd, so they know you, but there's now an expectation when you shoot, and it's the same thing. It's been with him since Orlando. It's like when you shoot.
Since I was like 14.
Yeah. Relax. When you shoot, it's going in. And if it doesn't go in, people are like, oh, that's surprising. And so that's a thing that everyone in the league can shoot. You know, it's the NBA, but at the same point, there's only a few guys that. And obviously the stats will back that up with both of you guys. And so that is a thing where it's a label, but it's a label that like you're not labeling guys that are mediocre shooters.
Yeah. And I'll say this to that. I couldn't make a shot in preseason. I shot like 26% from three. This year. Oh, yeah. And, you know, the doubt and everything starts to creep in and people are like, why am I supposed playing this guy, whatever. And nobody in American Airlines thought any of my shots were going in. So I've been on both sides of that. And I'll tell you, I'd much rather be on the side of people are like anticipating that it's probably going to go in.
What are you like watching and what are you consuming content wise these days?
I'm not on Twitter, which I think is probably the ultimate blessing. I deleted Twitter when I got to Michigan. I was like all about it when I first started playing, and then I had like a slump, the inevitable slump.
I thought he was going to say he had some questionable tweets.
Oh no.
No. 13. Now that I'm in Michigan, those tweets from Williams have to go away.
I had the inevitable slump, and the mentions go from like, oh, you're the best to like get off the, all this stuff. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to delete this. So I'm off Twitter, which is good. I'm on Instagram, but like, I don't really like post that much. So most of it is just like, I'll, see stuff here and there that's sent to me or whatever. So not really too much, but I think it's good. I try to keep like a clear head try to.
Do you get noticed outside of like Miami, or do people in Miami even notice you?
Like occasionally in Miami.
Yeah.
Like
Miami people are in their own
So you're
world.
just like your fame right now.
It's not fame. It's not really. No, it's not existent. Which I enjoy, quite frankly. Like before this, I walked down Bourbon Street and grabbed a meal by myself. Nobody would even think to say anything to me, which I think is great.
It is interesting though, the difference in the cities, because you obviously played in LA for a long time. If you played in a different city and you've had this year you've had, you would be getting, for example, if you played in New York. Mm-hmm. Steve Novak never had a season like you're having right now. No disrespect to him, great shooter. Never had a season like you're having now. Steve Novak was like a cult icon for Knicks fans.
He had that 1 year with Mike Woodson.
Yeah, and he was like, that guy's like, but
that was like the double check.
But I'm wondering, I'm curious what you think about this. I wonder if that's just because the Heat especially recently, are a like consistently successful franchise, and they kind of like judge these things based off of how you do in May, not now.
Yeah, I think it's also that like Miami's a pretty popular city, so like you might see some rapper or celebrity, like actual celebrity, walking down the street. So it's like,
don't sell yourself short.
Well, yeah, I mean, but like people are just less interested.
They don't care.
I'll get the occasional like here
Miami's
and there. Just in Miami,
Miami's a wild city, man. Miami's like the night of Miami starts at 11:30, and goes till like 5, and you're doing it the right way by avoiding all of that and just having good meals and then doing your job. And that's
it. You go to Il Gabbiano?
So that's the Italian spot.
By
the hotel.
By Sky. Or is it Sky?
I'm not sure.
The Epic.
Yeah.
So Zuma's in the Epic.
Yeah, exactly.
Il Gabbiano's next to it.
I haven't been to Gabbiano. I've been to Zuma, but I haven't been there. I got to check it out.
He just went to Don Angie's in New York.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Don Angie's. I got a recommendation on that one. That one was.
Have you ever done a tasting menu?
Never.
This is your guy, right?
I don't even know what that is. I'm new in the restaurant game.
Callbacks on this.
Explain.
Why do I have to explain this to him? I occasionally dine at Michelin 3-star tasting menu places. I don't know how else to explain it. What the fuck?
the best.
This is an ongoing joke, so you're caught in the middle of it.
A lot of the best restaurants, they legitimately are the best restaurants in the world, and it's a thing that we're both interested in. JJ just does more than I do, and he just went to the French Laundry over All-Star, and we went to a place in Chicago called Alinea. But part of the reason why we did this cheap eats thing earlier was I was basically like, everybody listens to this show thinks that he spends $800 every meal. It's like, no, it's like once every like 8 months. Like it's not a constant thing.
People are concerned I'm going broke.
Yeah, this is the new version of going broke.
My tasting menu budget runs into the tens of thousands.
Did you do Zingerman's at Michigan?
Yeah.
That place is legit.
Yeah,
Zingerman's. They have one at the Detroit airport, which is crazy.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone loves, that's like if you're coming to Michigan for like a short stretch or Ann Arbor, everyone always goes through there. I mean, it's really good. It's a little, in my opinion, it's a little overhyped, but that's just.
Did you go to football games?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah. We always had so I never got to like tailgate the football games because we always had like recruiting tailgates. Okay. Coach Beeline was very deliberate about that. Like he didn't want us. We'd have like a lift before and then we'd like host the recruits and then we'd go to the game. So
the games would start at noon and we would have an 11 a.m. pickup with the recruits.
Yeah.
And you're like, how? I can't fit a tailgate into that.
Can't do it.
Can't.
Well, we would actually we would have like a 8:30 or 9 a.m. lift. And then we would maybe have practice, but if we didn't.
This is on a Saturday morning.
On a Saturday morning. Yeah.
Wow.
But then the good part of that was.
No wonder the Cavs were so mad.
Once you got to the game and then after the game, you were free.
I'm kidding. I love John Beeline. I really do. If John had, I told Coach Beeline this when we played the Cavs the first time, just before the All-Star break. And I was like, dude, I tell people this all the time, but if you had been at like a Michigan or a UVA, like he was at Richmond when I was in high school. I was like, I might not have gone to Duke. I was obsessed with him. Yeah.
Did he try to recruit you at Richmond?
So we did team camp there 2 summers. Before my junior year, before my senior year, we did team camp in like June with my high school. And that's how I met him. And he was basically like, hey, I know you're not going to come, but you can come if you want. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to come. I like you. But his son was the same year as I was, Patrick. Yeah. So
what was the New Hampshire basketball scene like?
Yeah, I mean, the unfortunate thing about, first of all, not great. I'll lead with that. The unfortunate thing about really New England is that there's really no like public high school basketball scene. Most people go to like the prep schools, which is tough because like you lose the atmosphere of like, a rivalry or like a packed gym because it's like prep schools with like 300, 400 students and, there's no like locals or anything that really want to come and support. So that was tough. I mean, I totally missed out on like having that type of like, I'm sure you probably played in front of packed gyms in high school, which is something I was always like envious of.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, did you see our intros the other night?
No, which night?
What's the guy from Barstool? Pat?
Oh, Pat McAfee.
Pat McAfee did our intros the other night.
Yeah, it was good.
Did our starting lineup. And he said a bunch of crazy stuff. Like with Lonzo Ball, he was like, and his family did a reality television show in Lithuania from UCLA. Lonzo Ball. It was good. But about Zion, he was like, and he's been dunking on little white kids on the internet for 8 years. It was so good.
That's awesome.
But I watched some recent Zion high school highlights, and I got to say, the competition level in South Carolina, yikes.
No.
It's ridiculous. I've seen a lot of it. It's ridiculous.
It is not it.
Yeah.
Well, when we had him on the show, what we didn't, I think we might have realized it right before, but we didn't realize like a while before was he played with Ja in high school.
In AAU, right?
AAU.
Yeah.
And so like they weren't even, apparently there was another guy in the team that was better than both of them when they were playing. But like the idea of like those three,
that's
like,
crazy.
Teaming up against anybody is just insanity.
Yeah.
So did you not play AAU?
I played 1 year. Yeah, I played 1 year.
Do you ever watch those old games?
Occasionally. I have some like old film.
When did you grow height wise?
It was weird. Like, so I was 5'6" as a freshman. I grew like 3 inches every year for like 4 years straight. I was like 6'6" as a senior. But I went through some tough stretches. Like I like couldn't run. I was like uncoordinated. I was so skinny. It just took me a while to like, because I was growing so fast. It just took me a while to like kind of catch up.
You to teach yourself how to run.
Well, maybe not.
No, that's wild.
I have a question. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
This is the same way, like, and this is not pandering. Where does this rank in terms of recent, like, how did this happen? This is usually like even Anthony Davis, who obviously was a late bloomer, but like Anthony went from
he was like a highly rated,
and he was a good player.
Kind of figured out.
Yeah, he was a good player. He just grew, so he just grew a foot, and then he kept the same coordination, and so he went from being like a sophomore who was a good Chicago high school player into a guy that was like the top recruit in the country by the time he was a senior in high school because he became 6'11".
Yeah,
this is kind of it's a little bit of an unprecedented situation.
It is. I going back to when you were at Michigan. I don't watch a ton of college basketball, but I remember you at Michigan. I watched you, in the tournament or whatever, and I, obviously followed Coach Beilein here and there when he was there. So like I knew who you were. I didn't know your whole story, and then this year starts, and you're starting for the Miami Heat, and I'm like, what the fuck? I was like. And you're awesome. Like, it's crazy.
I appreciate that.
No, it's insane. It really is. It's an
that's what I'm
story.
saying. It's
like, that guy. Yeah,
it's an insane story. If you had made it the NBA for 3 games, made a couple shots, bounced around, ended up in Europe, it'd been cool. It would have been a nice. This is a different. This doesn't really happen. It doesn't really exist.
I told TJ McConnell this. I don't know why I'm going to shit on TJ McConnell momentarily. But when he was at Arizona, I watched it. For some reason, I was watching his last game at Arizona in the tournament. And he walked off the court and he's crying. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm a dickhead for saying this, but I remember thinking like, that poor kid. That kid's never going to play in the NBA.
Oh.
It might be his last big time game he'll ever play in his life. And now he's been in the league. He's in year 5. He's got a great role in the Pacers.
TJ's up there for another.
But he's another one. It's like it's an incredible story.
Yeah.
The thing with him, and like it sounds like from talking to you, is like, and I think for the most part, like I've always been this way. Maybe not right after Duke. I was kind of an asshole, but I've never felt comfortable. I've never felt like I made it. And like TJ doesn't. Don't ever feel comfortable, man.
Yeah.
You clearly don't.
Yeah,
and you clearly want to get better, which is amazing. So it's anyways, your story is incredible. We really appreciate you coming on the podcast and hanging out with us.